said, what I'm going to share tonight with the group is the latest project that me and my company have just finished. And I just wanted to share a little bit with everybody to show the results of what happened. And a lot of this came from Carl's guidance, and I am a student of Carl, and he has helped me through some of the trying times with some of the stuff that goes on with my project. So I'd just like to give you a little bit of background. The name of my company is M&M Enterprises. It's myself and two other partners that we have that are involved in this. Between us, there's over 30 years of experience in multifamily residential real estate, also some commercial real estate. Sorry about that. We've managed over 10,000 residential units. That includes some professional spaces and commercial space along with parking facilities. So we've run the gambit a little bit. We've been active real estate investors for 10 years now. We've rehabbed over 15 properties. Currently, we buy and have held some multifamily units for cash flow. And right now, our business plan is a dual business plan. What we're doing is buying, fixing, and rehabbing and selling houses. And we're also purchasing multifamily units to keep for cash flow. So we have a dual-pronged business plan at this point. A little bit of background on the project that we did. It was a 3-family dwelling. It had a ton of neglect to it, needed a lot of work. It was in an area of Connecticut that needed affordable housing and quality housing. We found that out we developed a relationship up there with the Section 8 housing inspector. He came by to see one of the projects that we were doing, previous project, wound up liking what he saw and asked us if we were going to stay in that region, in that area, which we sat down, had a meeting, and told him that we were. He liked the work, and we wound up purchasing this 3-family unit to eventually sell to Section 8 housing. That's a little bit it's the front view after it was done. It's what we call our Grand Street project, and it was up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. A little bit of stats on the neighborhood there. When we purchased this, there was only 3 other 3-families that were up on the market, and there was 7 2-families up in that same basic area. The average days that it took to sell a property up there at that time in that particular area, that locale, was 90 days after it was repaired. So we thought it a good opportunity for ourselves, and after doing some research, we found out that the ARV, or we came up with the ARV, or after repair value, on the low end was 150, on the high end was 200, and we figured we were going to try to get somewhere in between. Scope of work, pretty much everything. You needed windows, kitchens, baths, and what we did is we put laminate floor throughout the building. On top of, we had a challenge of, there were some fire code violations when we purchased the property. That was a major concern for the city at the time. We wound up doing that and picking that up because of the violations, because most investors were afraid to go near it. After having a conversation with the inspector, we found out that the corrections for those particular violations weren't really that difficult. It was pretty straightforward. So with that, we entered into the deal. And we made sure that when we were rehabbing the house that it met the requirements of Section 8 housing, so they could eventually, if we decided to hold it and rent it, that we would be able to get Section 8 housing in there, or if we wanted to sell it, whoever else was the investor would be able to do the same. Here's a little before and after. Kitchens were relatively small, but as you see, we put appliances in there, which we got relatively cheap. On the left, you see all the windows that are in there. We replaced all the windows throughout. The bathrooms were in terrible shape, as you can see from the picture on the left. That's my partner on the right. He takes a very good picture of himself. There's the bedrooms. Like you said, we did some rehab, the laminate floors. A little bit of the living room. Actually, we're very spacious apartments. It seemed to have a nice flow with it. They were all 2 bedrooms. The hallways there. They did a nice job of refinishing. That was the before on the left with the tree and the for rent. the rear, and the doors in the back are red because that's what the fire code requires up in Connecticut. Because in the back there's a stairwell, there's no fire escapes there. So it's a fire stairwell in the back, and this way the firemen know that those are the two doors that go in through the back, the rear, if they're gonna have people come out. Here's a little bit of comparison of what the project was. When we purchased it back in October, we paid $93,000. That was all in. That's attorneys, fees, closing. That was everything. We figured a budget of $35,000 for a total cost of $128,000, and we projected about $170,000 for the sale of it, and which gave us a potential profit of almost $42,000. And we were going to finish it by February of this year, which is what we figured the timeline was. Well, the actual numbers turned out to be purchase price is the same. Rehab was just a little bit less than what we projected. So the total cost was a little less. And we got a sale price of $175,000, which we should be closing relative in the second week of March. And the profit is $49,000. What I didn't tell you in here, or what's not shown up in there, is that we built a relationship with the Section 8 housing inspector up in the neighborhood, in the area, in the region. Upon conversation with him, we found out that the state of Connecticut was looking to purchase housing for Section 8. So instead of renting it, they're actually purchasing units. They were in the market for 30 units. So at the time, when the inspector came and he saw what we were doing, we wound up going into contract with the state of Connecticut for Section 8 housing for $175,000. So the relationship, what else I didn't put in there at the $49,000, we actually making more because in the interim while we were rehabbing, they put a Section 8 tenant in the bottom floor to live, and they paid us rent of $800 a month while we were doing the rehab, which worked out well for us because we had somebody who could watch the property. Nobody was going in there to take anything. You had somebody there, and the rent was there on the first of the month. So we benefited from that relationship in that way. Another thing that some of the lessons that we learned from this was A, to have the relationship, which right now has paid off for us, and there is future deals in the works, because what happens is now, also what I didn't tell you, is that when we were purchasing the house, the three-family before we did the rehab, the inspector, we asked him to come along with us to take a look. And he had already committed to us that he would purchase the property before we purchased it. So we already had it sold when we bought it. So we knew going in that we had a deal. It was just a matter of time that we had to wait to the following year because that's when their books opened up to start purchasing. And that's when they made the commitment to do it in March of this year. So in the future, we've already had this conversation before with him. Now when we look for anything that's a multifamily in the area, before we purchase, he's going to come with us to see if it's something that the state would be interested in. So we have a buyer locked in before we go. So that pretty much makes it a little bit much safer deal for us. Yeah.
Is the rehab budget that you had 32, does it include your partner's labor or time, or just the cost?
That was cost, that's labor, that's everything, that's material. What happened is we got a person to do it that was local, and he did good work, and he had a relationship with the person that would, one of the people that are the principals with me, so he gave us a break on it.
But you did not do any work on it?
Myself, no. I'm dressed too well for that.
I'm just trying to learn because...
No.
This
No.
is like very low price for three
It was, well, to be honest with you, the amount of work that was in there, although it seemed like it was a lot when we went in there, but a lot of it could have been fixed. A lot of it was saved. We didn't have to rip all the sheetrock out. We were able to skim coat some of the areas. We were able to get laminate floor cheap. We were able to get the windows relatively cheap. Some of the issues that they fixed, weren't major issues. The appearance of it, at the end of the day, when you put the laminate floor down, made everything pop. The appliances, just for example, we got the refrigerators, which you see is stainless steel. We got them for $300 a piece. We went out and found them in a place that was selling secondhand stuff, and we went and got them for $300 a piece. So we did. There was a lot of legwork involved in it, but at the end of the day, it paid off for us. So that worked out well. One thing that I did learn from this is that we wanted to do a good job, so this way the inspector would be happy with what we did, so this way we can continue the relationship. So even though $32,000, we probably could have saved another $3,000, $4,000. We put, like in the front, we redid the steps, but we put slate down. We did some things that were a little over the top. So in the future, we can do probably something that's as good, but maybe not as flashy, knowing that, you know, the end result and what the end user is going to be. Like I said, I'm closing in March, Section 8 additional, and we are in contract the second week in March. And what else I'm into? Our company right now, we own a couple of multifamilies. We own about 7 units up in Syracuse. We're going to keep going up in that area. We keep them for cash flow. In contract for a rehab deal in Farmingville that we're working on. Hopefully we'll close on that soon. And we're looking for investors who want to participate in our future growth. Pretty much it. Anybody got any questions?
Where do you see the market in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years after the interest rates? We know that they're locked in for the short term, but where do you see the housing market on Long Island going in the next?
Well, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you. I'm looking at it right now. Everybody says things are getting better, getting worse. All I know is there's a lot of deals out there, and the amount of margin that you're looking for, if you find it, it's a time to do it. Interest rates, you know, if they go up, I'm quite sure things will tighten up a little bit like before, but I'm quite sure this being an election year that things are going to continue to flow a little bit, would be my prediction. Yes?
You know, other areas in Section 8 where they're buying the properties?
Actually, Connecticut, when we came across this was the first time that I had ever heard of it. We were kind of surprised and shocked when we found out. And they were looking for a specific amount of units, 30 units, so they actually gave us the number that they were looking for. First place I've ever heard of that was doing it. It's always been rentals, that's always what I've been involved in, never in selling to the state. I think they feel that in the long run, it's going to be cheaper for them. It's basically what the gentleman told me. Because he figures he'll be able to recycle, if they lose people, they'll just recycle people through the same property at the same cost.
Good job.
Yes, sir.
How much time do you think you put in your apartment to buy into the deal?
Say that, I'm sorry.
How much time do you think you and your partner combined put into the Connecticut work?
As far as what, total?
Yeah.
Well, we put in, so let's put it this way, we went up there weekly to check on the progress of what was going on. So I'm going to tell you, if there was a total of 50 hours in it, it's a lot. To buy it, we looked at it, within 3 days we made a decision on whether we were going to purchase it or not. We did that right away, and then the rehab started probably 2 days after we closed. The rehab is actually, right now, is finished, and we're just waiting for it to close with the state. So it really was not that time intense for us. We had good contractor up there, we had a good person, and plus we have a very good wholesaler up there who finds stuff for us. Okay, thank you.
That's a pretty good story. Thank you so much, Ralph. Stay here. Don't go anywhere. I think one of the things that you really need to get out of this is that the relationship that Ralph has created with Section 8 is absolutely priceless, right? To have that relationship, to have that buyer sort of in your pocket, really what that does is it sets the stage for future deals. So, you know, you guys really did a great job with this one. So you did a great job here. Now, one of the things that we like to do for all of our family that we're working with is they get a little plaque to kind of remember us with, okay? So Ralph, on behalf of Carl Chavon and Associates, you did a phenomenal job. It's been great working with you, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And if we can get the folks in my coaching group afterwards, we can get a little bit of a group picture and hug them to death, okay? You did a great job. Thank you so much.